Corinthians. He says that ministry is like being on a stage. And it speaks of what appears to be a performance dimension, with the idea that we are on stage before the world. And so in our performing, if you will, one of the ways that we tell our story is through music. God was the executive producer. It is the producer who calls the project together. Yes, there is the talent that we most often see and we most often celebrate, but often we are not cognizant of the dynamic of the work. It is the producer who actually brings the project together. It is the producer who makes the selection of songs, who decides how the songs will be presented, who develops the background material, who determines the theme of the project. All of those things are driven by the producer. The producer is driving the scene from behind to develop everything that we see out front. So God says this Solomon was so gifted by God that he produced. What has God done behind the scenes that most folk don't see? Okay, they see who you are, but they see who you are not understanding what you went through and what it took for you to get where you are. They see the outward manifestation of it, but what is the story behind it? Because one thing I know for sure, everybody came to worship at the temple that Solomon built, but they didn't know that Solomon, the wisest man in all the world, learned that if God doesn't build this building, it will never get built right. What is your story? And by the way, let's be clear, you do have one. Everyone has one, and no one can tell your story except you. When God gives you a story, don't change the story. Your story may not be like my story. Sometimes I wish my story was like somebody else's story, but this is my story. My story is I grew up in church. My hobbies centered around church. My mama made me learn how to play the piano so I could play the piano in church. I was baptized at 9. I didn't always do right, but there's just some stuff that I have just never done. And that's my story. I can't change it. I can't change it to make it more interesting to you. I can't change it to make it more exciting to you. I can't change it to impress you. That's my story. My point is everybody has a story. Somebody out there has a prodigal son type story. You had to go away to a far place and fall into a pig pen before you came to your senses and came back home. That's your story. Somebody else may have a story resembling that of the man who was lame and his friends carried him and tore through the roof to get you to Jesus. That's your story. Somebody else was washing clothes in the middle of the day, like the woman at the well at Samaria when Jesus met you. That's your story. My point is, your story is your story. Stop trying to change it to impress folks who don't really matter. They have seen God coming. You saw him coming your way. In their story, they may have seen where God had been there all along, but if y'all's two stories ever come together, it will be a constant reminder of how God is there before you get there. He's with you through the middle, and you can see him even when he's already left the trail. You've got to share your story. Somebody needs to go run and tell somebody that.